We just found out that Ripple has a brand new initiative to mass accumulate XRP. And in this video, I want to talk about what this is going to do for XRP's price over the long run. Since the 24 hours this announcement has been made, there's been all kinds of takes out there. A lot of people saying this is a huge problem for the centralization of the XRP ledger. And another group of people saying that this is the most bullish thing that could have happened for XRP. Well, in this video, I want to give you my thoughts around this and really let you know what you need to be paying attention to on this game-changing announcement for XRP. Like always, your support means so much to this channel. Thank you to everyone who takes the time to like these videos and subscribe to the channel. These two simple things really do help me out so much. And if you ever need a good place to buy some XRP, make sure to check out my favorite exchange Uphold down in the description of this video. With that said, let's jump right into it, and I hope you guys enjoy the content. I want to start off this video and give some historical context, because one of the most important things we're going to need to understand to really evaluate this decision for Ripple to start mass accumulating XRP. And I want to start off and go over the announcement, because this just came in yesterday and honestly kind of shocked me. We got the announcement that just in, Ripple leads efforts to raise $1 billion to accumulate XRP in a new special purpose vehicle. Now, when I first saw this, honestly, I was taken back, and my initial reaction was extremely bullish. Talk about this all the time on the channel, but it's very simple when it comes down to the price appreciation of any token. It's a simple equation of supply and demand. The more buy volume you have, if it outweighs sell volume, you get increased prices. And a behemoth company like Ripple, mass accumulating XRP is only good for the price of the XRP token. But a lot of people have raised outside concerns, saying Ripple already holds so much XRP and centralization is already a big issue. Isn't this just going to make the problem worse and by default be extremely negative for not only XRP but the entire XRP ledger? Well, guys, that's where understanding the XRP ledger blockchain is extremely important, because the XRP ledger is not like other proof of stake systems. In a proof of stake system, something like Ethereum or Solana, the more actual tokens you have, the more power you have over the network. For example, if I was to accumulate 80% of the Solana tokens in circulation, there would be a huge issue, because then the blockchain wouldn't be decentralized anymore. As a proof of stake network, I would have just bought control over the network. Now, in general, this is a big reason why I'm not a fan of proof of stake blockchains. It's a huge issue. The more money you have should not give you more power over the network, because that means that any single person can come in with a large amount of money and take control of these given networks. In my opinion, that's not resilient, that's not decentralized, and it's a huge security flaw in how these networks operate. With that said, the XRP ledger acts completely differently. There's no proof of stake on the XRP ledger. In fact, even if I bought 80% of the XRP tokens in existence, I would have no more power over the network than I do today. This is because the XRP ledger does not rely on proof of stake. It has its own unique differentiated consensus algorithm. And that consensus algorithm has nothing to do with the amount of tokens you hold giving you more power over the network. Now, this video is not about XRP ledger's consensus mechanism, and I'm happy to make one, but the point is that's not how the XRP ledger functions. And therefore, no matter how much XRP Ripple holds, it makes absolutely no difference in terms of how much power they have over the network. So everyone coming out and saying that this somehow gives XRP a centralization problem doesn't understand how the network itself operates. And it's even funnier when you see these comments coming from people who are supporting other chains. Let me give you an example of this. On a space earlier today, I saw a very influential person talking about how this announcement caused him to dump his XRP and switch to SUI. But the funny thing about this is the SUI Foundation, as you can see below, actually holds far more SUI tokens than Ripple holds XRP. You can see right there the clear lack of logic and lack of understanding in how these networks actually operate. Not only does Ripple's decision to purchase XRP have no influence on the decentralization of the network, but in fact, he is now supporting something that has a significantly larger problem. SUI is a proof of stake token. The SUI Foundation holding so much SUI is a huge problem. It gives them more power over the network, more control. But he is supporting this over something like XRP, where these things are not even a valid cause for concern. This right here highlights how crazy it is that we are still in a situation in crypto where the vast majority of people don't actually understand these networks. Because any analysis of how the XRP ledger functions would leave you with the understanding that this is, in fact, not a problem for decentralization in the slightest. And everything with XRP Ledger's decentralization sits completely outside the amount of tokens allocated to any individual party. It's actually very similar to Bitcoin. That's why Michael Saylor buying a whole bunch of Bitcoin does not change the decentralization of the Bitcoin network. Ultimately, Michael Saylor can get 30% of the Bitcoin, and while people might be worried about how much Bitcoin he has in a potential dump or something like that, it doesn't make Bitcoin not a decentralized asset. It just means Michael Saylor holds a lot of Bitcoin a decentralized asset. In the same exact way with Ripple accumulating XRP. Just because Ripple already has a lot of XRP, just because they want to accumulate XRP, doesn't make XRP any more centralized. In fact, the only thing that matters is the XRP ledger is decentralized, and Ripple is just accumulating more of a decentralized crypto asset. This is one of the most important takeaways you need to understand, because not only does it go for this specific announcement and what it's going to do for the price of XRP over the long run, but it highlights how ingenious the XRP ledger was set up from the start. The creators of the XRP ledger knew that you should not have the centralization of the network dependent on who is buying the tokens. Why is that? You're always going to have bigger and bigger parties coming in. You could have bad actors with a lot of money. You could have good actors with a lot of money. But you don't want the decentralization and security of the network determining on whether the bad actors have more money or the good actors have more money. Doesn't make any sense to do things that way. And this is a big problem, I believe, with a lot of the other networks out there. The XRP ledger is extremely resilient, and this is a great example of that. Ripple can purchase however much XRP they want. It doesn't change the fact that the XRP ledger is a decentralized blockchain, and XRP is a decentralized neutral asset issued on that blockchain. These are the most important things to understand. There's no counterparty to XRP. There's no counterparty to the XRP ledger. There's no amount of XRP Ripple can hold that will ever change that equation. So Ripple is free to accumulate however much XRP they want with no negative impact on decentralization. And in fact, the only impact will be a vast amount of buy volume coming into XRP. As I talked about earlier in the video, the mechanics for XRP going up are quite simple. More buyers than sellers. And what we have right now is an influx of buyers. Not necessarily right now with the current dip we're in, but what I think we're about to see. ETFs launched are going to create consistent buy volume for XRP. And this $1 billion deal being raised by Ripple, that's only going to add to it. Another important fact to take into account here is I didn't see any announcement that Ripple was actually going to be the owner of the SPV. We still have to see how things are structured. It's very possible Ripple is just helping the funding effort for another party who's going to own the XRP. So it's so funny to me that people are jumping to some quick conclusions over a single headline. To be clear, I'm totally fine if Ripple owns the SPV. I'm totally fine if Ripple's buying XRP, because it makes no material impact to me as an XRP holder. The amount of gold any one of you hold doesn't make any impact to me as another gold holder. It makes absolutely no difference, because my gold is not impacted by you having more gold. You can't change my gold. My gold is still going to be gold. Just like Ripple purchasing more XRP does not change anything on the XRP ledger other than more buy volume coming in, raising the price of XRP. In fact, I'm happy for Ripple to be purchasing that XRP because it creates more long-term buy volume. Now, the question I think a lot of people are going to be wondering is, where is all this negativity coming from? And this is one of the things I really try to highlight on this channel recently. At the end of the day, Ripple didn't need the VCs, right? What Ripple has been doing, in my opinion, is the best strategy in crypto. They have XRP, they sell XRP, and they go buy game-changing companies that are going to build out the XRP ledger ecosystem even further. People like Hidden Road adding trillions of dollars of transactions to the XRP ledger. People like G Treasury connected to 13,000 banks. People like Medico, who are the custodian of choice for many of the major banking institutions. What Ripple does with XRP is, yes, they sell XRP, but only for the purpose of building out the XRP ledger ecosystem and garnering adoption for the ledger. Now, let's compare this to the VC model. Imagine I'm the VC, and in the very early days, Ripple chose not to do the model they chose. They chose to take money from VCs. Let's say I got 20 billion tokens of XRP, and what did I give Ripple? Let's say I gave them $10 million. First of all, that $10 million isn't going to do much of anything. But second of all, and maybe more problematic, I then have all these XRP tokens. And guess what? Maybe I don't care about the XRP ledger. Maybe all I care about is making a bunch of money, building a new house, and furthering my career. Me selling XRP is not going to go back into the ecosystem. In fact, it's going to be extracted from the ecosystem, and it's not going to lead to any material increases in the fundamentals for XRP. This is what's happening with these other VC tokens. And these VCs do not want to lose this business because they're making a lot of cheap and easy money. They are incentivized to make it seem like Ripple's strategy is the worst thing in the world, and they're being greedy. But it's really just stealing the greed away from the VCs who want to use the money for their own selfish needs. They're mad that they were cut out of the equation. And because of that, they're going to do whatever they can to make sure other people don't go down that road. That's where a lot of the negativity is coming from. But what would you rather have? Would you rather have a bunch of VCs dumping XRP to fund their own businesses and that money being extracted for the XRP ledger? Or would you rather have Hidden Road, G-Treasury, Medico, and Rail all building out services on the XRP ledger and making the XRP ledger closer to the most important financial systems on Earth? I know what I would rather have, and I know which one's going to drive more long-term value. Ripple buying XRP is just another strategic move in the equation. Create more demand, create more marketing, create more insight, and create more large parties involved in the XRP ledger ecosystem. In my opinion, this is only good for price. Thank you so much for coming. I hope you enjoyed this update. And for now, Mickle out.